Heya people! This is my first trial at a rant style video. As a quick disclaimer before the video starts, please don't harass anyone mentioned in this video. I've encountered a situation on Twitter which I wanted to talk about. Before we can talk about the situation, I want to talk about the greater subject of the situation, commissars in 40k. Commissars in 40k are specialized officers that are especially attached to Imperial Guard units. The Imperial Guard is the regular army of the Imperium, and commissars are morale officers which are tasked with keeping the morale up and to weed out corruption or treachery against the Imperium. And they are also tasked with teaching the Imperial Creed. And considering this is 40k, this is of course taken to the extreme. Commissars more often than not shoot their own soldiers to motivate others or to keep them in line. I don't want to go into much detail on commissars. Maybe I'm making a lore video on them in the future. The commissars in 40k are especially inspired by commissars in real-life communist armies. The most common known commissars are the Soviet commissars, which existed in the Red Army from its beginning in 1918 until the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991. There were also commissar-styled political officers in Nazi Germany, which existed for a relatively short time. These officers were tasked with teaching the National Socialist worldview and were able to indoctrinate millions of Wehrmacht soldiers and also civilians, and really helped to spread anti-Semitism near the end of the war. Though there were also political officers, the Nazi commissars, in quotation marks, had not the same authority as Soviet commissars. They couldn't just replace the Wehrmacht of the regular Wehrmacht officers leading the troops, but were more used for educational purposes. Educational here also in big quotation marks. The tasks of the Soviet commissars were to teach politics, especially Soviet politics or exclusively Soviet politics, to the common soldiers, and they were also tasked to keep morale up like its counterparts in 40k, though they were not as trigger happy as their 40k counterparts. A little bit of context regarding the situation. There was this VTuber called Banana Juju, and she has a white-skinned model, but many people took issues with this model because she wears dreadlocks, which some people consider to be cultural appropriation. My personal opinion is that you should wear every hairstyle you want as long as it's not directly offensive, and as long as you don't make yourself look like the leader of Germany from 1933 to 1945. I think everything is okay, and why shouldn't you be able to adopt the hairstyle of a different culture? It only means that you appreciate this culture and this hairstyle. Yeah, maybe I'm too European to understand this American topic. Yeah, this VTuber was thanking many other VTubers for supporting her in this situation against the backlash, and I don't want to talk much about the ideologies or beliefs of these other VTubers because I'm not really much acquainted with them. What I want to talk about is this post from Bint here. They made a crop out of Banana Juju's thumbnail, and there you can see the VTuber Powder in a 40k commissar style uniform or cosplay. And Bint and many others were equating this uniform to being a Nazi uniform, but I don't think it really fits because the 40k uniform was inspired by many militaries throughout history, which we talk about later. If you look more closely at Powder's uniform, we can see that her uniform, in quotation marks, is just a recolored version of her normal outfit with a commissar hat. I can't see much wrong about it. There were many people like SB here who argued that the commissar uniform is based on the Nazi uniform, which is just not true. Just because you see a very standard military uniform, or in this case, it's just the head, really, just the peaked cap, which is iconic for commissars. It's really inspired by many such caps from other militaries. And if you take a step back, this could be your standard sci-fi military uniform without anything attached. And even if you look at the cap, when you look at the skull and the wings, this is a common symbol of the Imperial Guard or Astra Militarum, or whatever you want to call it. And in my opinion, it doesn't really read as Nazi to me. Not much more than the Imperium already reads, but this is a topic for another time. I think we can all agree that the Imperium is a totalitarian state we don't want to live in, and which has clearly fascist and authoritarian characteristics, which are not great, to put it mildly. Yeah, then I got another post pinned retweeted, which really annoyed me, where this person, someone's girl, posted a picture of 40k Commissar cosplayer and an SS officer. Yeah, this person claims that the head of the Commissar here is inspired by the SS officer's cap, which I just cannot see. I mean, if you compare it closely, they don't really look alike. If you look closely at these two caps, you can see many elements which connect these caps, but these elements are also present in caps from other armies throughout history. Funnily enough, the jacket you see commissars often wearing is based on the hussar jacket, which originated in Hungary in the 17th century. I also saw another post which claims that just wearing a hat is not a cosplay, but since Powder adjusted the rest of her outfit to fit the cap, and she's actually, in my opinion, making an impression as a commissar, I think this is a valid cosplay as a 40k commissar. But at this point, it really gets philosophical, at which point a cosplay is a cosplay. I think a cosplay is a cosplay at a point where you can recognize the character, which here you, in my opinion, can clearly do. Yeah, in conclusion, I think there's nothing wrong with portraying the 40k commissar and comparatively easy to cosplay character in 40k. I just think it's ridiculous to attack Powder because of this uniform. I think it's more ridiculous to equate the commissars or people who portray them as Nazis just because they are wearing this uniform, because it's clearly not a Nazi uniform. If anything, it's inspired by many militaries, and the position of commissar is heavily inspired by Soviet commissars. I think the people who were upset by this wouldn't have reacted the same way if it were a left-wing VTuber wearing the same uniform but with a hammer and sickle as insignia, which would actually be more historically accurate to what actually happened. I think 40k fans deserve better than to be attacked in this way, especially the cosplayers which were shown in this debate. And equating them to Nazis is just false, I think. I think people on Twitter should inform themselves more about things they want to post, especially if it's from a community or fandom they clearly know not much about. I think it's sad that 40k again comes into the crossfire of this, for the lack of a better term, culture war, which is just deepening the divide between left and right. And yeah, this is certainly not going to help cool down the moods. Maybe it's better to ask questions first and shoot later, and not just assume the worst from people. In my opinion, 40k fans are the most inclusive and tolerant people I met on the internet, and it's very dishonest to say it's otherwise. Of course there are bad apples, but which community doesn't have them? As I said, this video, this rant is not meant to offend anyone. Don't go after people, and this is not meant as a general criticism of Bind. I really like their posts, and I also follow them on Twitter. And if you like politics and VTubing, you should follow them as well. That's all I have to say about it. And thanks for listening to this stumbly ramble. As you can maybe hear, I'm not a native English speaker, and I'm not really used to speaking much English. Yeah, but I hope you didn't suffer much while listening to this rant. Yeah, again, thank you, and maybe I'll make another rant like this. I hope you have a nice day, and